In this video, we'll look at multiplying decimals, and we start with the area model. So the way we develop multiplying decimals is very similar to how we developed multiplying fractions, which makes sense since decimals are fractions. We're going to look at a whole number times a decimal. Okay, so, oops, here we go. Okay, so start with just reminding them, looking at a whole number times a whole number. So 3 times 4 is 3 copies of 4. In this case, you may even want to look at repeated addition as well. So when we have that first number is a whole number, this is a nice connection to make, equals 12. And they can draw a picture of 3 groups of 4, 3 copies of 4. So how is this going to connect to 3 times 4 tenths? Well, this will be 3 copies of 4 tenths. And this might be a little tedious to draw. I'll just shade really quickly. So there would be our 3 copies of 4 tenths, and they would see that the result is 12 copies of 1/10, or 12 tenths, which we'd write as 1.2. So you can connect this to the fraction language if you'd like, okay? Or you can just have them, if they group these together, it would fill up 1 whole unit square plus 2 tenths more. We want them to see the pattern that we multiply 3 times 4 to get 12, but the units of the 12 are different. So this was units of size 1 and 1. Here we have 1s times tenths. Our result is tenths. We still have 12, but they're tenths. And in the last section, we also practice rewriting numbers like this, where we have denominators that are powers of 10, but the numerator is larger or smaller. So we did learn how to rewrite this as 1.2. Okay, so they can connect that. Okay, then we multiply 3 times 4 hundredths. They'll get 12 hundredths. And then you want them to start to look at those patterns. So what do we do when we multiply a whole number times a decimal? Well, in each case, we get 12 something. What is that something, and how do we determine what that final unit, fraction, or place value is? Then we look at multiplying 2 decimals, and this is similar to multiplying 2 proper fractions, where we use the rectangular model in the fraction section. Okay, so 3 tenths of a copy of 4 tenths, 3 tenths of a copy of 4 tenths. And remember, we had them, I'll use pink and blue. Okay, so first maybe we'll find 4 tenths. We'll shade it this way. Okay, so that in this direction, that's 4 tenths. And then if we want to take 3 tenths of that, use blue, it would be 4. Oh, shoot. Was I supposed to do 3? You know what I meant. Undo. Okay, I went back and redid this. So now 3 tenths this way. So we have 4 tenths. Here we have 3 tenths. Actually, the 3 tenths would be out of this total. We took 3. And then the overlap is the product. So this is 3 tenths of a copy of 4 tenths, which gives us 12 hundredths. Okay, we can use the same idea here. Okay, and they should be somewhat familiar with this idea. So again, we want them to look at this and say, well, we have 3 and 4. How are 3 and 4 related to 12? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, where does the place value end up? and they may remember some of the general rules with moving the decimal points over 2 places. So 3 times 4 is 12, move it over twice. But to get them to see this idea that we're multiplying, and we still multiply like we would with whole numbers, we just have to be concerned with place value. And this shows why when we have tens times tens, we end up with hundredths, because we end up with these small pieces. So now that we've developed those general ideas, we have our standard algorithm or idea for multiplying 2 decimals. Okay, and notice I intentionally, and it's like this in the homework, I give them the same types of numbers, meaning for these we multiply 14 times 3 for all of them. So we're not focusing on the multiplication of 14 and 3, we're really focusing on where does the decimal end up going in the result. Okay, and same with 3 and 8, 4 and 21. Okay, so that will help reinforce that idea. And notice we really only work with tenths and hundredths. The way I like to think about it is, if I wouldn't want to do it in my head, they can do it on a calculator. Okay, so we don't really go past tenths and hundredths place when we're multiplying by hand. We do that later on a calculator, and the idea is we want them to understand the concept with the smaller numbers, and then they can do the tedious computations on the calculator. Okay. In the next video, we will look at dividing decimals.